Level 1. Disaster Class. Showot. This French machine gun from World War I represents everything that can go wrong when you try to build an automatic weapon on a budget. The Showot isn't just bad, it's an engineering catastrophe created by actual trained professionals who somehow still managed to design a weapon that seemed personally offended when you tried to shoot it. The gun featured an open-sided magazine. Yes, you read that right. Open-sided, which allowed mud, dirt, and debris to flow directly into the mechanism. In the trench warfare of World War I, this meant constant jams after just a few rounds. The long recoil action made it wildly inaccurate, with the entire barrel assembly moving backward during firing. The half-moon magazine was fragile and poorly designed, bending under normal use. Soldiers actively avoided using this weapon, and many accounts describe them simply abandoning Showots in favor of captured German weapons. This gun is the king of junk and earns a perfect 0 out of 10 for a fundamentally broken design. M73. This American tank-mounted machine gun from the 1960s proves that even modern militaries with massive budgets can produce absolute disasters. The M73 was designed to replace the reliable Browning M1919 in armored vehicles, and somehow engineers created something dramatically worse. The weapon suffered from constant jamming, particularly when firing in short bursts, which is exactly how tank crews needed to use it. The bolt carrier had a tendency to break, the feed system was overly complex and prone to failure, and the headspace adjustment required constant attention. Tank crews in Vietnam quickly learned to hate this weapon with a burning passion. Many units illegally swapped out the M73 for older M1919s because they simply couldn't trust the issued gun to function. The M73 gets a 1 out of 10, and honestly, that feels generous. Level 2, F plus tier. Type 11. This Japanese light machine gun perfectly embodies the frustration of almost working weapons. Japan's attempt at squad-level automatic fire featured an innovative hopper system that fed cartridges from standard rifle stripper clips. On paper, this sounds brilliant. Use existing ammunition supplies without special magazines. In reality, it was a maintenance nightmare that haunted Japanese soldiers throughout World War II. The hopper sat on top of the weapon, completely exposed to dirt, moisture, and debris. The cartridges required an oiling mechanism to feed properly. Imagine trying to keep an oil reservoir clean in jungle or desert combat where everything is covered in sand, mud, or humidity. In actual combat, soldiers constantly fought with jams and feed failures. The Type 11 gets a 4 out of 10 because it could work sometimes, but that hopper system was cursed from day one. Ager gun. This American weapon from 1862, also known as the Ager coffee mill gun, was one of the earliest attempts at a practical machine gun during the Civil War. The gun used a hand-cranked mechanism to feed cartridges from a hopper on top, firing steel-cased rounds at a theoretical rate of 120 rounds per minute. President Abraham Lincoln personally witnessed demonstrations and was impressed enough to order several. However, the steel cartridge cases would swell after firing, causing extraction problems and frequent jams. The weapon was far too complex for the era's manufacturing capabilities and battlefield maintenance requirements. Union forces that received Ager guns found them more trouble than they were worth, often abandoning them after a few engagements. The Ager gun gets a 2 out of 10 because at least they tried something new, even if it sucked. Level 3, mediocre. Madsen. This Danish machine gun is the perfect embodiment of good enough. Developed in Denmark and first produced in 1902, the Madsen was one of the earliest truly successful light machine guns. It saw service across dozens of countries from the Russo-Japanese War through the 1950s and beyond. The weapon was genuinely innovative, using a unique recoil-operated action with a vertically traveling bolt that made it remarkably reliable for its era. But that top-mounted box magazine held just 25 to 30 rounds. In any sustained engagement, you'd be reloading constantly while enemies kept shooting. The Madsen worked and served admirably for decades, but it never quite achieved greatness. It's the reliable sedan of machine guns. The Madsen gets a 7 out of 10, a pioneering design held back by practical limitations. DP-27. This Soviet light machine gun from 1927 became the standard squad automatic weapon for the Red Army through World War II. The DP-27, nicknamed the Record Player because of its distinctive 47-round pan magazine mounted on top, was simple, rugged, and reasonably reliable. Soviet doctrine emphasized weapons that untrained conscripts could operate and maintain under the worst conditions, and the DP-27 delivered on that requirement. However, that pan magazine was annoying as hell. It was bulky, difficult to carry spares, and the exposed position made it vulnerable to damage. The bipod was flimsy, and the barrel couldn't be quickly changed, limiting sustained fire capability. The DP-27 scores a 6 out of 10 Reliable enough, but that pan magazine design was a constant source of frustration. Type 96? This Japanese light machine gun from 1936 attempted to fix the problems of the earlier Type 11 by using a top-mounted box magazine instead of the cursed hopper system. The Type 96 chambered the 6.5 by 50 millimeter Arisaka cartridge and featured a 25-round detachable magazine. The gun was reasonably reliable in good conditions and lighter than many contemporary designs at about 20 pounds. However, it still required cartridge oiling for reliable feeding, which meant carrying oil bottles and dealing with dust sticking to oiled rounds. Japanese doctrine never fully figured out how to employ light machine guns effectively. The Type 96 gets a 5 out of 10 because it worked for what Japan needed. But that's about all you can say. Level 4, decent, Vickers. This British heavy machine gun is the gold standard for reliability. Based on the Maxim design and adopted before World War I, the Vickers served through the 1960s in some armies. There's a famous test where a Vickers fired over 1 million rounds continuously with only brief pauses for barrel changes and water refills. It didn't fail once. 1 million rounds. In World War I trenches, soldiers knew that when they squeezed the Vickers trigger, it would fire and keep firing for as long as they needed. The water cooling system meant the gun could sustain fire indefinitely without overheating. Yes, it was heavy, around 40 pounds without water, mount, or ammunition. But for the era's technology and tactical requirements, the Vickers represented engineering excellence. The Vickers scores an 8.5 out of 10 for reliability that became legendary. Bren. This British light machine gun became one of the most trusted weapons of World War II. Based on the Czechoslovakian ZBVZ-26 design, the Bren was adopted by Britain in 1938 and immediately earned soldiers' respect. The gun fired the .303 British cartridge from a 30-round top-mounted curved magazine. The design was simple, reliable, and accurate enough to engage point targets at range. British soldiers absolutely trusted the Bren with their lives, and that trust was well placed. The weapon functioned in North African deserts, European mud, and Asian jungles without complaint. The Bren served through multiple conflicts, from World War II through the Falklands War, a testament to its solid design. The Bren gets a solid 8 out of 10 for being a weapon that never let its users down. M1919. Browning. This American medium machine gun represents John Browning's genius for creating reliable automatic weapons. Adopted in 1919, the M1919 served through multiple wars without complaint. The air-cooled, belt-fed design fired the .30-06 Springfield cartridge, later converted to 7.62 millimeter NATO. The recoil-operated mechanism was robust and straightforward, with relatively few parts that could break. The M1919 appeared in virtually every World War II combat theater, mounted on vehicles, aircraft, and tripods for infantry use. At 31 pounds without mount or ammunition, it required a crew to move and operate effectively. What made the M1919 special was its consistency. It worked in Pacific jungles, European winters, Korean mountains, and Vietnamese rice paddies. The M1919 Browning earns an 8.5 out of 10. Level 5, excellent. PKM. This Soviet general-purpose machine gun represents the pinnacle of practical design philosophy. Introduced by the Soviet Union in 1969, the PKM refined everything they learned from decades of automatic weapons development. It weighs just 16.5 pounds unloaded, remarkably light for a belt-fed weapon firing full-power rifle cartridges. It uses a proven gas-operated system with minimal parts, making it reliable and easy to maintain even in harsh conditions. The PKM fires the powerful 7.62 by 54 millimeter R cartridge with excellent accuracy and manageable recoil. The design is brutally simple, with no unnecessary complexity, just a straightforward system that works every time. The PKM is still in widespread service today, over 55 years after its introduction. Light enough to move, reliable enough to trust, powerful enough to matter. The PKM gets a 9.5 out of 10 for being exactly what a general-purpose machine gun should be. MG34. This German machine gun literally invented the general-purpose machine gun concept and influenced everything that came after it. Introduced in 1934, the MG34 was revolutionary for combining the roles of light machine gun, heavy machine gun, and vehicle-mounted weapon in a single design. The gun fired the 7.92 by 57 millimeter Mauser cartridge from belts or saddle drum magazines. The quick-change barrel system allowed crews to sustain fire by swapping barrels every few hundred rounds. With a bipod, it served as a squad automatic weapon. On a tripod with optics, it became a precision, long-range weapon. Mounted in vehicles or fortifications, it provided heavy suppressive fire. German infantry doctrine built around this concept, treating the machine gun as the primary weapon with riflemen supporting it. The MG-34 gets a 9.5 out of 10 for revolutionizing how militaries thought about automatic weapons and setting standards that lasted decades. Level 6, Best, MG-42. This German machine gun, Hitler's Buzzsaw, terrorized an entire generation of soldiers. With a cyclic rate of fire between 1,200 and 1,500 rounds per minute, the MG-42 produced a distinctive ripping sound that Allied soldiers learned to recognize and fear instantly. That sound meant an area was about to be saturated with bullets at a rate that was almost incomprehensible for the era. The engineering was genuinely revolutionary. It used stamped metal construction instead of machine parts, making it faster and cheaper to produce without sacrificing reliability. The quick-change barrel system allowed crews to sustain that incredible rate of fire indefinitely by swapping barrels every few hundred rounds. German doctrine built squad tactics around the MG-42, treating it as the primary weapon with riflemen supporting it. The MG-42 changed how militaries thought about sustained automatic fire and created a legend that still resonates today. Hitler's Buzzsaw gets a perfect 10 out of 10 for terrorizing an entire generation and delivering world-class battle-proven perfection. FN Mag. This Belgian general-purpose machine gun became the Western world's answer to the perfect squad automatic weapon. Designed by Fabrique Nationale in the 1950s and adopted widely from the 1960s onward, the FN Mag combined reliability, accuracy, and manageable weight in a package that over 80 countries chose independently. That's not marketing, that's consensus. The gun fires the 7.62 by 51 mm NATO cartridge from disintegrating belts, providing substantial firepower with excellent accuracy. The gas-operated mechanism is robust and reliable, functioning in temperatures from Arctic cold to desert heat. The British adopted it as the L7, Americans use it as the M240, and dozens of other nations field it under various designations. The FN Mag served in the Falklands, Iraq, Afghanistan, and countless other conflicts, always performing reliably. The FN Mag gets a perfect 10 out of 10 because 80 countries choosing it independently proves it's the real deal. Level 7, God Tier, M2 Browning .50 caliber. Simply put, the greatest machine gun ever created. Designed by John Browning in 1921 and adopted by the United States military in 1933, the M2 has served continuously for over 90 years. This weapon has been in every American conflict from before World War II through current operations in 2025. It's been mounted on infantry tripods, vehicles, helicopters, ships, and aircraft. Soldiers today trust the same basic design their great-grandfathers used storming beaches in the Pacific. The M2 fires the .50B MG Browning machine gun cartridge, which is devastating against personnel, light vehicles, aircraft, and fortifications. The effective range extends beyond 1,800 meters. Despite numerous attempts to replace it with modern designs using advanced materials and updated technology, the M2 remains the standard. Why? Because it works. When a weapon serves effectively through 9 decades of technological revolution, from propeller planes to stealth fighters, from horse cavalry to drone warfare, you're witnessing mechanical immortality. The M2 Browning gets an 11 out of 10, standing alone at the absolute top. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and drop a comment. See you on the next one.